Hello, everyone. Welcome to Inspire. I am your host, Shaw Hayes. We are so privileged and honored to have here with us Assistant U.S. Attorney Shaniqua Butler. Her journey is something that, is probably hasn't been written because she's written her own journey in her own terms, defining for herself what it looks like to be a lawyer and also in such a prominent position. And without further ado, we welcome today to Inspire Shaniqua Butler.
Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Oh, I'm fine. How are you?
And Kiana, our host, she's also a host too. She's the founder of Inspire. She created this platform so we can connect professionals to finding out about their journey so that others can be inspired about this. So welcome Kiana too as well.
Thank you, Shah and Shaniqua. Thank you for being a part of Inspire. We are looking forward to hearing your journey today.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So I like to just go right in when it comes down to just like really connecting to your story and who you are and how you became the person you are today. When you, I guess, decided for yourself that you wanted to step into the role, I think back to as a child, we often kind of dream about things and have aspirations for yourself. When you were younger, what did you tell yourself you wanted to be?
Well, my aspirations for becoming a lawyer and these things kind of stem from something that was tragic in my life. I was 10 and my uncle was murdered. And so it was then when I was after his murder and really experiencing the criminal justice system and seeing the effects that it had on my family. At 10, I knew I wanted to be able to be a voice, but at 10, you don't really know what that is. And so I knew I wanted to be able to make a difference. I remember one time thinking, should I be a teacher or should I be this? Like I remember thinking about those things, but it wasn't until a couple years later that my another family member went through a situation and she didn't have a lawyer. She said that she wished she had a lawyer to be her voice. And she felt like her life would have been different, like things would have went differently. And for me, it clicked. I knew I wanted to do something and be a voice. But then when she said to have a lawyer be her voice, I knew then like, okay, lawyer is what I want to be. Wow. To be able to be a voice for victims and those who have received some form of an injustice. So, yeah.
That's so amazing. So around about 13 years old, you kind of had what you realized for yourself was your journey, your path to where you wanted to go in your career. Would you say was it about that young?
Yeah, it was. Yeah, it was like my uncle was murdered when I was 10. And I would say the thing with my cousin happened like maybe a couple years later. So, yeah, it was around that age when I was like, OK, this is, definitely what I want to do. Because at 13, I'm probably going into 14, going into high school, maybe 15 high school. So, yeah, I already knew going into high school, I wanted to go to college. I knew I wanted to go to law school. So those things were already kind of at the forefront of my mind. Mm-hmm.
Which is a great, I guess, place at a young age to already have that kind of spoken into your spirit that that's something you wanted to do. So when you got in high school, like were you like on a debate team? Were there other like kind of law groups and things or preparatory places that you could have gone to while you were in high school that kind of gave you kind of a window of what that would have looked like?
No, actually, no, I didn't participate in any of those things. I wasn't a part of, any of that. I was actually told a lot that while I was in school, I was told a lot that I was very quiet. When I would talk about how I want to be a lawyer, people would tell me I'm too quiet. Even with writing, I remember being told from like even in high school and going on up to, I want to say college. It was probably my last year of college where things changed. But before that, all through high school and college, all I heard was either I was too quiet to be a lawyer and that my writing was weak. And when you think about it, those are the two things you need, you kind of need to know how to do as a lawyer, speak and write. But early on, that was kind of being told to me like, oh, you're too quiet, or, oh, you're a weak writer and things like that. So it was really just kind of honestly believing, having to really believe in myself and work on those things. So that's one thing I did when people would tell me I was a weak writer, my teachers and stuff, I would try to take the time to work on that to make it. And now that God was able to make it a strength of mine. I excel in writing now, but back then they would tell me that, and that could have deterred me. That could have made me say, maybe I don't want to do this because, I'm quiet or, I'm a weak writer according to their standards.
And it's so amazing the characterization of being too quiet because I don't know in terms of these teachers, were they lawyers that they had experiences of people in their family that were, because it seems like we all put in our mind the characterization of what a lawyer is from television, the kind of fist pounding on tables, screaming and being very theatrical, which some aspects of being in a courtroom is theater. But that's amazing how that perception of being quiet is not associated with being an effective lawyer. Do you categorize that mind state being based on what people see, or do you really believe that what the society around, or what even in law school is what they're telling people?
I think it might just kind of be what people see on TV. On TV, you probably see, this lawyer being super loud and theatrical, and they, object, you're out. You're like they're yelling and he's guilty, screaming. It's way more conservative in court than that. What it is like on TV, it's definitely not like it is on TV. But so maybe because they see things like that, they kind of think that. I mean, I heard it from also not just teachers. It was definitely peers too. That made those comments as well. So maybe people associate if you're quiet that you won't be able to speak up in a setting like this. But just because someone is quiet doesn't mean they won't speak up. I think I am quiet, but I'm also reserved, and I speak when I feel like I have something to contribute and something, positive that I think will help. I don't just like to just speak just to hear myself speak. So no, I'm not the loud, outgoing person, that's going to be trying to get all the attention. But when I have been told by people, like, when you speak, like, wow, so I take, I clap pat myself on the back, and I thank God that he did give me a voice that when it's appropriate to use, I do use it. And I think that's what's important, how you use it and when you use it.
Yes, the loudest is not always the right, the most poignant, the most important person, but they seem to do that in order for them to be seen. And so I don't think anybody just want a loud lawyer; they want an effective one. So meekness is just as good. So even to the point of writing, and I guess speaking about that, you said that being told that it pushed you to learn more. So what did you do to seek out and go about enhancing your writing skills?
So I would take that extra time that it took to write my essays ahead of time, to go and see my professor or my teacher to say, hey, could you look at my rough draft before it's actually due? In college, I did that a lot. I went to the writing center. I went to, to just kind of go get the extra help and do whatever it is that I need to do to make my writing better. And I remember kind of getting into college, like my last year of college, I had to submit like my final thesis. And I remember when I was preparing it, I was praying too. I also contribute a lot of this, that God allowed what people call a strength to now become what people call a weakness to now become a strength, because I would pray as I was writing. And I remember on my final paper, I was praying and I was writing, and I was like, Lord, please help me to write this paper. Give me the way to organize it. Give me the way to do this. I mean, I prayed throughout the entire time I was writing this paper. And I remember when I submitted it, that a couple of days later, it was like time for final exams in my other classes. And I remember when I was taking my exam, I looked up and my professor from my writing class was knocking on the door of the class that I was currently in taking a test. So I was kind of like, what's going on? And, the professor came out there and talked to them, and then they came back, he like glanced at me. So I knew it had something to do with me. So I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what is that? Like, I know I didn't do anything inappropriate. So what is going on? And so when I got finished, my professor said, hey, your other professor wants to meet you, wants to talk to you in her classroom. And so I'm like, okay. So I go, and as I'm walking, I'm like, Lord, I prayed to you this whole time. I know you didn't give me no plagiarized stuff. I know you didn't give me that to plagiarize, because I didn't look at nothing else. I prayed. I talked to you. You gave me that stuff, God. You did. So what is it you want to talk to me about?
Recommend the Lord on your way.
I was like, I'm trying to figure out, like, Lord, what's going on? Because you gave me this stuff. So what's going to happen? Because I thought it was something about plagiarism. Because what else would the professor want to be talking to me about?
Right.
So when I get to her classroom, she says, Shaniqua, oh my gosh, your thesis was amazing. You're a great writer. And I was like, me? She was like, yes, you write very well. And she was like, I want to use your, thesis paper in our writing center so other students can see how it should be done. Wow. And I remember just sitting there thinking, thank you, God. My man. Thank you.
That's it. Call and see.
so that's what I did. I
Answer.
took the time to
Yeah.
actually put in the effort to, make my writing better.
Yes, and making sure you reprimand the Lord on the way too.
We were just having a conversation.
Just so you know, I'm in the background laughing away.
Checking the Lord, like, Lord, now I didn't know you need to put this. But I love that though. But I love that because it is one of those things, because you're constantly being challenged by things that you want to do, and you're pouring your whole self into something that when you think someone's pulling you out, the first thing you think is like, oh, what happened? And so that's amazing that in that moment that your essay but you took that time out, that you poured all that energy into, came out that way, which is a great example about putting in the work. Just making sure that you put in the work, because then all the people who said you couldn't do it, it's not about not being able to do it. It's just about putting more effort into it. That's why people should never damper someone's light and tell someone they shouldn't do something. It's just about saying, well, maybe you should redirect this into energy that's going to allow you to learn more or absorb more into that. So I guess in that stage in your, education, did you have a mentor to kind of guide you along to say, hey, keep going, keep pushing? How did you get to that point beyond calling on God to get you to the next step?
Oh yeah. I definitely had a great support system. I had a church family, really had two church families that were, encouraging me and sending me words of encouragement, prayers, text messages. I did have mentors that I met during my internships that would encourage me, and they saw things in me that maybe at that point in time I still was struggling to see about myself, and they would encourage me. So it's so many people, I can't even begin to count how many, but I definitely will say that God blessed me with a lot of people who believed in me, who encouraged me, who cheered me on during that journey while I was in college, especially because that's kind of when I did my internships and was able to meet a whole lot more people. But in high school, definitely with my church family, and then going on into college with my church family, and then my mentors, and then kind of transitioning from there on, like the people that I met while I was kind of going through my law school journey. So, it takes a village. When they say it takes a village, it really does. God will send people at different times of your life. And they speak stuff right when you need to hear it. And you just know God sees me, because he only knows that I needed to hear what she just said, or what he just said, or what they just text me. And that gave me the confidence that I really needed to have, or kind of reminded me you can do this. It definitely, the people matter. The people you have around in your support group really do matter. Those who believe in you, because just like I said, there were people who didn't, but they went, they weren't necessarily the people that I was trying to cling to or anything, but still their words along the way could have, deterred me.
And that's great that you had that within you, because like you said, words can really change trajectory of someone's life by just encouraging them and then dissuading them from doing it. But when you think about the education path, I guess explain, because not everyone knows in terms of becoming a lawyer. People hear law school, but you still have to get an undergraduate degree. It's not like a certificate program you could just get to become a lawyer and then that's it. So I guess explain the portion of the education and what it goes into taking, because there's a 2-step acceptance process that you have to get into, right?
Yeah. So after college, the degree that you choose to get really doesn't matter. Because I started out political science in college, but then I didn't like it at all. And I was thinking about, there was that thought, what if I knew I would have to take the LSAT. And so the LSAT is the test you take to get into law school. And I knew that it's a standardized test. And I knew I didn't do well on the ACT and the SAT when I was trying to get into college. And so I knew then that was kind of already at the forefront of my mind. I'm going to have to take the standardized test, that's going to, basically what I have to submit to these different schools, and that will determine if they will accept, that will be a part of the process of, for them to determine if they're going to accept me, or not. And so I had decided to major in accounting. I changed my major from political science to accounting, because I said, well, anybody can work in accounting. And there will always be a job in accounting. I really understood it. I grasped it, and I was like, oh, it's actually pretty interesting. I'm pretty good with numbers. So it kind of came a little easy. And so I was like, okay, everybody will always need to hire somebody to handle their money and handle accounting. There's always going to be a job in that field in case law school didn't work out or something like that. But I minored in criminology because I still wanted to be able to take criminal law classes and things like that to kind of get a feel of it. And I was still interested in criminal law. So I minored in criminology and I took accounting. I did well in school. And like I said, you have to take the LSAT. So after school, I was burnt out. After college, I was burnt out, and I decided to take a year and a half off. And so during that year and a half, I worked at a law firm, and I worked in the accounting department there full time. And they knew that I wanted to eventually go off to law school, and they were completely supportive of that. And so I worked in accounting, and then while I was there, able to make contacts with different lawyers who were able to provide me with letters of recommendation when I got ready to leave for law school. And so I took the LSAT, but I didn't do well. Kind of like that. I mean, I kind of thought that I probably wouldn't do too well because I just don't test well on standardized tests, but I do well when I do work. Like my grades are always good, but as for standardized tests, I just don't do well on those. And so I took it twice, and I only went up like one score. And when I say I didn't do well, like, people, of course, people have their own mindsets of what's well. Like, I think the highest you can get is a 180. I really can't remember now, but I think it's a 180. Well, mine was like a 139, 140. Like, it really was low. And most schools really kind of require like maybe at the 150 mark or so. And so I didn't do well. And so I remember contemplating, should I take it again, or that mean at that point I was a year and a half in, I would have to stay out of school even longer. And I had told myself I'm only taking this time off to get a car, because at that time I didn't have a car, and I had got my car. Thank God bless me with a car. And so I was like, I don't want to keep waiting. I said I was this time frame I want to go off. And so I applied to schools. I applied to like maybe 14 schools.
Wow.
And I was denied. And maybe I want to say maybe 10 schools. I was denied at like 10. I was accepted at 2, and I was waitlisted at 2. And at that point, I remember being so kind of broken in my spirit, because all the schools I really wanted to get into, I was denied, and when you receive so many rejection letters like that, it's like, geez.
Yeah.
And then right. And then, you start thinking about all those things from, what people told you. It kind of opens that door up again a little bit. And so you're battling, with that. And so after I applied for those 10 schools, after I didn't get accepted to those 10, the 2 that I did get accepted to, I remember I only applied to them because they kept emailing me. And I said, well, if they're reaching out, then you got to know what my LSAT score is. So you're probably going to accept me. And so I applied. But I remember and I got into those 2, and I remember being very, very sad. You tell your family, you tell friends, everybody's happy for you. Everybody's happy. They hear law school, lawyer.
That's all they care. They care about where it is.
And so I just remember one Sunday, my pastor, he announced it at church. Shaniqua's going off to law school, and everybody was super happy for me. And I remember everybody coming up to me and telling me how happy they were and proud of me. And I remember going back to my car, and I broke down crying. And my sister was sitting in the car with me, and she was just like, what's wrong? Because you would think I would be happy after everything that was going on that day. And I just broke down crying. And another minister had came to my window to congratulate me. When she saw me, she was like, what is wrong? And I told her, like, everybody's happy for me, but I'm not happy, because this isn't really the school that I wanted to go to, but I'm going to still go. But this particular school wasn't the one that I wanted to go to. Now, when I got there, it was great. That first year, it was a good experience. I met some great people and stuff. And that was Charleston School of Law, but it just wasn't like my number one pick or anything like that. And so, I remember having that moment and really, being kind of sad and crying and really just like, man, but, I decided to go ahead and go off to school for 1 year at Charleston School of Law.
So I guess in terms of like, the desire as far as school is concerned, people hear the Yales and the Harvards and all that kind of stuff, and they're like, okay, that's the prestige. But for those schools that are like the one you went to for that first year, did you feel like it provided you at least the initial portion where if someone, that's all they could get into, could be able to still glean from that and be able to build the foundation of graduating from a law school and still getting the same accreditation or still the same esteem as a Harvard or Yale?
Oh yeah. Because honestly, I felt like that school really prepared me when I got ready to transfer, because there it was closed book tests. You really had to study and know the material. I mean, I remember being in one of my classes, and this professor, you just didn't know who he was going to call on. You could literally, I mean, it's kind of like that in most of your classes, but this one, you knew you were going to like be ready, because you might get called on. Like, it's no probability. Like, you're probably going to get called on. You need to really, really be ready and read your stuff and know what you're going to say. And I remember that I had heard from so many people about this professor, and I was so nervous when I got to the class. And when I sat down, it was the first day of class, and he had called on everybody else. And he's very animated and everything. He had called on everybody else, had went through everybody. It was like the last 2 minutes of class. And I was like, made it through.
You made it.
Shaniqua, now you tell me. And I was like, and thankfully the clock, it literally, like, he called me probably 1 minute before class ended, and class ended. And because it was dead silent, because it caught me so off guard. It was dead silent. And he was like, we'll pick back up next time. And I was like, oh my gosh. But then I felt so like embarrassed, because I was like, oh my gosh, everybody was looking at me and I didn't know the answer. So you know what I did? I went back to my room and I started studying. I went through all the cases. I was like, okay, I'm gonna be ready. When he calls on me, I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna make sure I'm not gonna be shy. I'm gonna, speak my piece. Like, I can do this. I might not have the scores that everybody else have, but I deserve to be here. I can do this. And so when we got to class the next time, he started back up and he asked that question, and he didn't call on me. He just asked the question that he initially had posed to me, but he didn't directly call on me. So I took the initiative and I raised my hand to answer it. And I mean, I killed it. And after class, he was like, as I was leaving out, he was like, Miss Butler, come here. He shook my hand. He was like, it was great to have you in class today. And that boosted my confidence so much, because it was like, see, you got it. You really got it. Because I'm telling you, when you think of when you have, been rejected from so many schools, and your score isn't that well, and like I said, people have told you you're quiet or you can't write or these different things. I remember, being in my first year, my first writing class, the writing class that I was in for law school, and I remember looking around. I was the only Black student. I was like, oh, okay. And I remember one of the guys that was in my class, he had the highest LSAT score in our section. So I'm dealing with the guy that got the highest LSAT score in my section. And I remember looking back thinking, wow. But again, it's those moments where you have to remind yourself, like, if God allowed me to make it this far, I can do this. He's going to help me. He's going to continue to prepare me, and I can do this. And when I got my first writing, my legal writing essay back from my first law class, and my professor, wrote on the back, I had an A-, my first class, my first essay. On the back, my professor wrote one of the best first year law student papers that I've read in a long time. So again, and he said you had one of the best papers in the class. I had one of the best papers in the class. The girl that people said couldn't write, the girl that people said were too quiet, the one who had the lowest LSAT score. You can defy the odds. Don't allow those different things to keep you in this box, because God can allow you to break that mold. And, that's all that I really want to say with my life. God has reminded me and showed me I don't have to fit the status quo.
Yes.
That he can allow me, and he will allow me to break the mold. He will do it. Okay. You just show up. God will do the rest. You put your trust in him. He will do the rest. And that's what a testament of my life. Everything that everybody has said, according to statistics, I'm probably not. I know for a fact I'm not supposed to be, where I am now, working at the U.S. Attorney's Office, and doing all these different things that I'm doing now. Okay. According to statistics and stuff, I probably shouldn't even made it in law school, but yet graduated cum laude. You can defy the status quo.
And it's so true, because and I think about this when Kiana connected us to you coming on the show, I always think about names. My born name is Tisha, and like you being Shaniqua, people think and have a certain perception even in mind about even that, down to your name, down to like you should be a cashier, and nothing wrong with cashiers, but that's the greatness of who your name association should be. Like, that's what's so crazy about the fact that people always want to create a label based on certain things about you, whether it's not your skin color, it's your gender, if it's not your name, it's where your socioeconomic background. So it's just amazing that you were able to persevere, and that you allowed your faith, and are proud to speak of the fact that your faith was the thing that helped you and propelled you to get to where you are today, and that you are a true testament of like just believing in that, and that knowing that you're showing up, you can do it, and having God's faith and mercy over your life, that's what's going to make the difference for yourself. So
Yeah.
so when you are now in this position where you're now like, I've gotten myself out of the, I guess, the head traps of believing all the naysayers telling me what I couldn't do, and you're now there. Have you gotten to the point where you like, all right, well, I know what I want to do? Because when you go to law school, there's an array of things you can become. You can go to law school to be a whatever lawyer. Did you know at that point? I know you wanted to do as far as the defense, the helping victims, but specifically, did you know what type of law you wanted to do?
Yeah. I knew that I wanted to do prosecution. And so during my first year, like my internships, the first internship I had, it was I worked for the City of Charleston Legal Department, so I was still a prosecutor, but it wasn't necessarily criminal law per se. Like what I was really interested in, it was still like prosecuting or people violating different ordinances and stuff like that. But so I still was able to get a little feel of that. But I knew that's what I wanted to do. And see, at that time, the law school I was at didn't offer like clinics and stuff like that. They didn't have certain programs, and so there came a time when I was getting ready to look to transfer. And that was the thing that I was looking for. When I was looking at these other schools, I wanted a school that had, a lot of criminal courses that I could take to learn all about the criminal justice system, where they had clinics where I could be a student attorney and get that practice, while I was in law school. I wanted to be on, the journals, and the briefs and write. I wanted to be a part of mock trial and things like that. So I began to look at those different things when I was getting ready to transfer. So that was definitely at the forefront of my mind. So I did know, I knew I wanted to do criminal, and I had began to think, you kind of consider, do I want to do this or do I want to do that? Or am I interested in this? Like, what if I don't try this and I actually might like it? But I don't know, my passion was just always just there for, working on criminal cases, because criminal cases, I knew that's where you're going to deal with, unfortunately, somebody, they're being a victim, of some sort. And I know on the civil side, I do know on the civil side, there is like, personal injury and things like that. So that's that too. But I just knew, for me, I don't know, I just knew criminal. I just knew.
And that's such a great thing to learn about that, because as you were saying, although the school prepared you, there were things like that you needed to ask yourself. So you had to find out those things once you got there. Okay, I needed to have these type of things, this list of things that's going to help me get to this next level, because it's allowing me to be prepared at the school level, as opposed to having to then now leave the school and then intern to hopefully getting that experience to going there. So I guess what would be, your 5 things of an advice in terms of things you would look for when you're looking to apply to law school? It could be more than 5.
Well, I would say, if you have an idea of what you want to do prior to going to law school, like even if you just kind of have a general idea, maybe you're not completely sold, but you have a general idea, I definitely would say try to look for schools that have programs geared towards what you want to do, or go look for a school that has a variety of programs that will give you the opportunity to see what you want to do. Like I said, my choices were limited. I literally had 2 schools to choose from, and one was in Florida. I didn't like Florida. Like, I just don't care for Florida, So I was like, I don't want to live in Florida. So boom, going to Charleston. And so I would say for other students who are trying to figure out, well, what could be the best school, or what school might be best for you, I just would say, kind of consider what that school offers. And if you don't exactly know what you want to do, just look for a school that has a variety of programs. Like I said, clinics, that's something I didn't really know about when I entered into law school. Like, oh, there is such a thing called a clinical program where you can, be a student attorney and actually appear in court with a supervisor, and you would actually handle the case. Well, I didn't know that when I first started. At that time, when I first started, I was looking, the only thing that I looked for in schools, I was looking for schools where I could probably do like a dual degree. I wanted to, because I had my accounting degree and I was still doing well in accounting, and I was working in accounting while I was in law school. I thought, well, I could still probably get my master's in accounting, and so I was looking to do that. But once again, that school didn't have that program. And when I mentioned it to like the dean and stuff at that time, about that, they were like, they don't have that kind of program set up, and it could take, time where I probably would already be gone, even if they start the initiative now. So it was like, okay, well, that was out the window. And that was the only thing that when I was going into school, kind of looking at that. So I would say for other people, if you want to do a dual degree, maybe you want to get your master's and stuff, you want to look into that to see if that school offers that, to see if that's a program that you can attend or be a part of, and the type of courses, like I said, a variety of courses. And if you are allowed to like kind of select, all your courses, or if the school is going to like require you to take certain courses and you only get certain, electives and things like that. I think when I transferred to American, it's very like liberal. Like I really like curated my whole schedule and was able to take literally every class that I wanted and stuff like that. So that was very important to me. And the type of professors, if you want to be able to find a school that, for me, when I was looking again the second time, it was like, okay, I started looking at, the type of professors and different things that the school offers for those classes that I'm going to be interested in. And I realized like, wow, American, the professors there, they were prosecutors teaching the classes on, different prosecutorial, classes. They were defense attorneys that was, teaching those type of classes. They were, politicians or this or that. They were teaching those classes that they were in the field of. So it not only presented where they can speak from personal experiences, which can help me as a student, but also now this is a good networking opportunity because you work in the place I might be potentially interested in working in, which I will speak on that later because it actually worked in my favor later on. But yeah, like it's important just to kind of think about, those are things I didn't think of, but those are some things I would suggest a student to kind of think about. Just have an idea, of what you want to do, because law school is too expensive to go through it and then realize you don't want to do this. It's a hefty bill, okay?
Yeah. Especially you think about, because I know you stated earlier that your undergrad didn't so much correlate to your getting into law school, but I'm assuming they require an undergraduate degree. But if, say, for instance, somebody said, I'm an actor, I decided tomorrow I want to be a lawyer, would that be kind of something they kind of say, well, we need you to take a couple of these classes before you're able to even get to law school?
No, long as you have like an undergraduate like degree, then as long as you have an undergraduate degree, I think you should be good. Like I don't think you have to take, like I know for that, I don't think you have to take any type of class, because the classes you take in law school, completely different than any type of classes that you really take in undergrad. That's why I also say like you don't have to major in political science. You don't have to major in a certain thing. Really, I think that if you choose to, like I did accounting, one, I bring a different perspective, and there's different career fields where you could be, a lawyer that's that works in account, like as I can't think of the name of it right now, it escapes me, but basically there's a field for people who are licensed, lawyers, as well as you have, accounting degree, or you have you took the CPA exam and you're you're a licensed CPA. Like there's a field for that. So I definitely encourage people to just kind of think about if you're in undergrad, I definitely say do something you're interested in. Don't do it just because you feel like I got to do this type of thing, because I thought no shade to anybody that does political science, but for me, I just kept thinking, well, what type of job would I get if law school didn't work out and I'm just going to do political science? Like I couldn't think of what I could do. But to me, it just was like accounting. Well, what I did was I took a bunch of classes to figure out what I liked. So I just took one semester. I ended up graduating a semester late because I just took a whole semester where I just wanted to figure out which classes I liked, so I could pick a degree that I liked. If I'm paying for it, I need to pick something that I'm going to enjoy and that can benefit me. And I ended up taking a bunch of different classes, and accounting and finance is what the two that stuck out to me the most. And I ended up deciding to go with accounting. So, I encourage students to.
And I think that's also important. For example, if you went to school for engineering and then you go back to get your law degree, what's helpful when you have a case, you can actually be an attorney for the engineering companies because you understand engineering. So even for accounting, if you know the principles and the backgrounds of accounting, and now you have your law degree, you can work for companies and, be the attorneys for the company. So I think it's good to have that those both dual degrees and actually work, because you never know how your career may shift.
But that's a great advice for people to think, because a lot of times people think going to undergraduate, if they're considering going to law school, you're immediately going into criminal justice or political science. Like that's an immediate thought process. And I don't know how much of people, when they go into the initial interviews, somebody say, well, you don't have to do that exactly. You can go into X if you have other passions. But a lot of times they say, no, criminal justice, political science, sign me up because I'm going to law school afterwards. But to know that is to give somebody some other information to provide them, especially if they have other things they are interested in, because people often feel like you got to stay in this one direction and that's it. Like, don't deviate. You say in law school, political justice and criminal justice and political science, and that's it. So that's good to know, and that's good information for anyone who's interested in looking into going to law school, that it doesn't have to be that direct direction that people feel are those two majors anyway.
Yes, exactly.
Yep,
exactly.
So when you are you've gotten through your law school and you're now going to intern, because when you leave law school, I guess, when you have a job after you leave a school, you can get a job right away. Are you getting a job right out of law school as a lawyer, or you still have internships you still now have to fulfill in order for they give you your case?
So after law school, there is something I want to speak on about law school. Could I speak on one more thing?
Sure.
About the law school?
Absolutely.
So when I got ready to transfer, because I only did about 3, and it kind of ties in a little bit about what you're saying. So the experience that you get while you're in law school, kind of transitioning out of law school and where to go with that. So when I transferred to American, after my first year, I would say that, well, one, I didn't have the credentials that, was posted on the website to get into the school. I actually just applied because I thought, well, I have nothing to lose. The deadline's in a few days. It's free. And I went ahead and applied. And like I said, when I saw American, it had everything that I thought would be great, for me to learn and get that experience and the opportunities for internships that I saw there. And so I applied just on a whim, and I got accepted. Didn't even check my status checker because I just felt like I don't have the GPA, definitely don't have the LSAT, so whatever. And then got the email that I was accepted. And I knew once again, this is nothing but God, because I had no clue I would ever be in Washington, D.C., ever be here, at this school. I can remember a friend telling me to come visit her in DC because she was at Howard. This was a couple of days before I got accepted. And I was like, girl, school is so crazy right now. My school, going through some things. I'm trying to transition out. Like, I just don't know. I don't know when I'm gonna be able to visit. And so I remember hanging up with her. And then a couple of days later, when I got accepted, it was literally like 2 days later. And I said, girl, I'm just playing. You know what? I'm about to come up there now. She was like, girl, come tonight. And I literally, the day I got accepted, I left in the middle of the night and drove to DC. Wow. I was so excited because once I told you that, I had all those rejections from those others, and it's finally now I applied to a school that I wanted, and I got in. God allowed me to get in to the school I never imagined getting into. That was a really good school, a top 100 law school. And I'm like, wow. And so I left that night and went. And I'm telling you, when I say things changed for me once I got to that school, because my first year of school, like I said, I felt like it taught me a lot. But what I realized, like, I struggled a lot too. My GPA, like I said, wasn't like it used to be in college. I was so used to getting 3.5s, and then there I was struggling. Like, I did everything I was supposed to do. I met with the professors. I met outside, with study groups, but yet I wasn't, getting the GPA that I wanted. And so I was just like, man, it was so much going on with my family and myself. I was dealing with depression, and so much was happening during that first year of school. So much. And then it's like, but during that time, I also was able to meet people and tell a lot of people, well, I was just talking to people about my, just talking to them, just kind of, I'm talking to y'all, and God would always come up. And what I realized was a lot of people afterwards would ask me more about God. They would tell me, oh, it's because of you that I know about God. It's because of you. And I would be like, oh, wow. And when I left, now looking back, a lot of the people that I met, there, I felt like I was really there on assignment. It really wasn't there for me. I met so many people afterwards that would tell me, like, wow, they come to me and say, hey, I want to be saved. You talk about God. I want to know God, and it's just something I wasn't thinking about. But when I left, I was like, I believe I was there on assignment, because really, when I think about the bigger picture of the lives that were touched or changed, it was beyond me, something bigger than me. And so it's like, once I left there and, left the school and transitioned, I felt God opened up every single door for me. I left and I got accepted to American. I'm telling you, before I had like a a scholarship at my other school. I only had an $8,000 scholarship. Came to American, got a $20,000 one. You know, left from there with, you know, only I had like 3 internships. And then when I got there at American, every single internship I applied for, I got. So I worked at Office of Attorney General, State's Attorney's Office. I mean, I worked everywhere. One of them at the U.S. Attorney's Office, the internship there, you know, I didn't even go through an interview, just submitted my application and got it. And, you know, it was every single door just began to open up. The briefs and, you know, the journals I wanted to be on, got to be on that mock trial. I was on that, made it to my first competition, made it to a finalist in Puerto Rico. Nobody but God. That just opened up all of these doors that everything that I, you know, wanted to do, he just allowed it to fall into place. And to go from a 2.9 GPA and graduate with a 3.9 GPA and graduate cum laude, who would have thought? You know, and only God could do something like that, where he could work all the things that were bad for your good. You know, it did. The way it started is not the way that it ends. And that's what something I want to encourage for a lot of people. Just because you start one way doesn't mean that's how you're going to end. Just because you have to start at one place, at one school, in one situation, you know, understand that's not going to be the ending result. But you have to take it in strides and trust the process and trust God through the process, because it's a reason that you're there. It's a reason why it's happening. And it's bigger than us. In that moment, we can't see it, but it's something so much bigger than us that's taking place and that's happening. So I'm so grateful that I did go to Charleston School of Law. I met a lot of great people that I'm still friends with to this day, who have encouraged me, who have helped me, prayed for me. We still keep in contact now. They are dear friends to my heart. So, and even those people who encourage me, my professors, you know, God placed in my life that would, you know, encourage me and, you know, push me when I didn't believe in myself. I mean, when I got ready to transfer, I was thinking, I'm going to the school with people who had to have, like, you know, these super high LSAT scores. Like, little old me and my professor, the one in my writing class, you know, he was always encouraging me. And he said, you're just as good as them. When you get there, don't think that you are, you know, you are any less, you know, good than them. You are just as good, if not better. You remember that when you go up there, you know, and those words stuck with me. And, you know, I was able to take that with me and continue to, you know, when I got there, realize like, he was right. Like, because I had to learn a certain way, all this kind of came together. And so you do all these different, you know, internships and mock trial competitions to work on your speaking and presentation and, you know, pretend trials, and you do the writing to kind of prepare for writing in the real world. But even after you graduate law school, get your degree, you still have to you got to prepare for the bar exam. So you really can't, you know, practice law legally as a lawyer until you actually are licensed. And so after, you know, law school, is now time to study for the bar exam. So you're, you know, finishing up law school, you're probably your 3L year finishing up law school, and you're also trying to figure out where you're going to go next, you know, okay, because you still got to work and still have a job and then study for the bar exam. And so for me, I knew I wanted to do what's called a clerkship, where you work for a judge and basically, you know, you assist them with their cases, and that it deals with writing, you know, the memos or the opinions, and them, you know, decide on cases. And so during my law school experience, I had did a judicial internship as a judicial intern for a judge at the DC Superior Court. And I remember when I was doing that internship, like, seeing the law clerk and the judge talk, and they were really close, like communicating closely. And I thought, I want to learn up under a judge. I want to know what they think about, what they kind of consider when they're handling a case. And I was like, I want to have a judge that I can speak to and talk to and kind of ask questions and kind of understand these different things. Like, why a court decide this way versus this, and what did they take into consideration? So I knew then I wanted to be a law clerk after law school. So for me, that was the path that I decided that I was going to try to pursue first, before getting like an actual permanent position, was clerking. And so when as I entered into my last year, I decided to look for clerkships. Now, by the time I learned about clerkships, though, because I want to say I did my judicial clerkship internship the summer going into my 3L year. And so what I didn't know then was, like, if you want to get a federal clerkship, then they do their hiring process a year before most times. Okay. And so I kind of learned, you know, kind of late in the game, you know, if I want a federal one, I'm kind of too late for that now. But I was like, I still want a clerk. So, you know, I'm going to look for other clerkships. And I did. I looked for other clerkships in the DC area. None of that really worked out. You know, I applied to a couple places, didn't hear back. And I, reached out to some of my friends at Charleston School of Law. And I said, hey, I want a clerk. I'm looking for different positions, could you guys let me know what's being posted, for y'all school? Because we have what's called LinkedIn. I mean, not LinkedIn, Simplicity. So law school, most schools have Simplicity. And that's where postings will be for different jobs, internships, clerkships, whatever for that particular school. So I asked my friends in South Carolina, could they, look on theirs and tell me what they see? And if they was interested in a job here in DC, I could tell them what I see, like a little swap. And so they told me about, a clerkship at the South Carolina Court of Appeals. And so I looked the judge up and I was like, oh yeah, like I think this would be great. Like, it was, for Judge Gathers, and he was the only, African-American judge sitting at the South Carolina Court of Appeals. And I did some research on him and I was, reading about it. And I was just like, I think this would be a great judge to work for. And so then I was like, well, how can I apply? Because they saw it through their account and that's where it was posted at. And I was like, man, so I reached out to my professor because his law clerk, my judge's law clerk at that time was someone that used to be I think he was he was in my writing class, but as like a teaching assistant or something like that. So I was like, oh, he was there that first year that I was there. He was like my teaching assistant. So I reached out to my writing professor, the one that I continue to keep in contact with. And he told me, oh yeah, I can, I know who, him, I'll put you in contact. And I was able to apply. And once I submitted my materials, I had to do a writing exercise. So it didn't just, interview and get a job, because it was appellate. And he was also known for having, like, his chambers for having very well written opinions. And so he was known for writing and being able to handle really challenging, cases and stuff. And so I had to do a writing sample, like submit a writing sample, but also do a writing exercise. So I had 72 hours to write a per curiam opinion. And at the time,
but I mean, I guess to get an understanding for people who are watching this, and we'll go back and watch it later, being a law clerk to a judge, and you can be a law clerk, I guess, in a law firm, explain to what that position entails and what your actual functions are, I guess, for working with the judge.
So at that particular clerkship, because that was appellate, that's now the trial has already happened. So now it's a case on appeal. And, all through South Carolina, anybody that wanted to appeal would submit their cases there to the Court of Appeals. And so what I would do is, once we got our cases, so basically after the case is at the Court of Appeals, it will first go through like the staff attorneys there. The staff attorneys will basically get the cases that don't really need oral argument, and they can get those cases. And then the cases that really do need oral argument, maybe something more, lengthy, more thorough view or whatever, will go to the judge. And so once the judge got the case, my judge then would assign us, the law clerks, and in his chambers he had 3. He would then assign us cases, and those cases. So say we got 3 cases in 1 month, just as an example, then each one of us would get a case, and we would be responsible for doing the research and writing the memo. And our memo is basically letting our judge know what, how our kind of recommendation of how we think that he should, what he should consider, how he should probably rule, what the case law says, how, our analysis of it. We submit this memo, and after we submit the memo, and it's tight on deadlines too. So after we submit the memo, then we have to submit it to the panel of judges, because Court of Appeals in South Carolina, there's like 3 judges to a panel. So we submit it to our judge, who then, once he approves of it, submits it to the panel. The panel reads it, and then we have oral argument. If the case warrants an oral argument, there will be a day out the month where we would actually have oral argument. We would talk with our judges about, different questions that maybe they should, ask, and different things that we, just different things to kind of consider. And we would have dialogue with our judge with kind of dealing with the case. So you really are involved in, writing these cases and these opinions, and your input, does matter. It helps the judge think through those issues and different things like that. So it was a wonderful experience for me. Absolutely wonderful experience.
And that's a great thing to note, because I guess coming out of law school, I'm assuming that once you have that experience becoming a law clerk, but out taking the bar, you could ultimately, if you decide to stop there, You can say, this is where I find myself in terms of my journey and my path, and not take the bar. You can be a law clerk, but you have to have gone to law school in order to have done that.
Yeah, you do. And also it kind of depends too on which kind of court you apply to, because for instance, when I was at the Court of Appeals, that first year I didn't have to necessarily be licensed. But in that particular position, my pay was determined whether I was licensed or not. But basically, if I wasn't licensed and I stayed on a certain pay scale, the next year, if the judge wanted you to stay a second year, then you move over to, a different pay scale, and you have to be licensed. So for me, at least in that position, I had to be licensed when I moved over to the second year. And so just to press pause a little bit, because I was saying, like, I hadn't found this job, I had applied and I was able to get it, but I got it while I was still in law school. So I didn't pass the bar the first time around. And so so I started the job, knowing like, now I got to retake this test. And now I'm working and I got to pass it, because then, my judge, I think by then he kind of told me he wanted me to stay a second year. So I kind of knew I had to pass this test, because I want to stay and I need to move to the second year, position. So I don't know if you want me to talk about my experience with the bar exam.
Well, no, I was just going to, because I'm just trying to, like I say, for people who are not familiar with the process, because now that you're in the position where you're, required to take this exam, and that's contingent upon you maintaining this position. And like you said, you didn't pass the first time. I'm assuming there has to be a lot of pressure going into it, knowing I need to keep this job and also have to take this exam. Like, what preparation does the test you took before and help you prepare to the second time? So does it help people to say that, all right, you failed the first time, the second time be better, because you've already got the answers in your head, basically?
No, I wouldn't say necessarily that, because that's not really, because that won't always be. Sometimes that's not the case. For people, there have been people who had taken more than that, because they do change it up. The questions that they ask, the topics that they test. So I guess repeat your question, let me, so I can direct my answer.
Well, just in terms of just understanding for people, if they fail the first time on an exam, if you know that the exam is going to come around again, most of the time you feel like, oh, I'm more prepared because I took it and I kind of have an idea. And you're saying basically that's not the case because it changes. So that basically answered the question.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, to an extent, but I will say this. I don't want to make it seem like you just have to, that it's, well, let me just say it like this. For me, at least, that first time around, I recognized what I did wrong. I studied sun up to sundown. I didn't do anything else, no extra stuff to even try to take a break. It was morning doing my bar prep courses until midnight or whatever, trying to do these essay questions and practice questions, go home, go to sleep, wake up, do it again. And then on top of that, in one of my bar prep classes, I mean, they told me like, oh, they don't really test you on, I can't remember the topic, but they said, oh, they don't really do essays on a certain topic. So I kind of briefly reviewed that one, but since they don't typically do it, and what happens, I take the test and doggone it, there's a question that's worth a lot that was exactly what they told us that wasn't going to be on. So I didn't pass it by like 10 points that first time around. And so the second time around, a lot of like me having to go sit through the actual bar prep course, that part for me, I didn't do, because I already had the notes. I already had all that written down. I already had my outlines prepared. What I needed to do was really focus on the material that I have and study and kind of, understand the material, memorize the material, and then I need to apply it. I need to do more practice problems. So for me, I kind of focus more on practice problems and memorizing. I had my wall filled with me, with paper pasted on the wall, me writing diagrams and everything, so I could remember, what was going to be, remember the stuff and retain it, so that I could, be able to articulate on a test, on the essay part or whatever. So for me, that's what I did the second time around that I felt like was different. I studied everything and I made sure I understood everything too, because, there's sometimes it's so much stuff, it is a lot of stuff, because I mean, they're testing on any little thing, but I tried my best to try to cover all of that I could and practice in multiple ways with flashcards, all of that. And I would say the second time around, God just worked it out. When I found out I failed, I was didn't pass it. I want to say didn't pass because, really when you say you failed is, it just has such a negative connotation. And I really felt so bad when I didn't pass, because it was like, man, God, I jumped through all these hoops and hurdles and wow, I don't pass. And then my great uncle had paid for the test for me. And it was like $1,500 that he paid.
Wait, so with one test, the bar exam is $1,500 to take it one time?
It depends on where you are. In South Carolina, I didn't have the money to pay, and so initially I think it was like $1,000, and then the late fee was like, or during a certain period they added on more money, so then it was $1,500. And so by the time my uncle was like, I want to pay for your test, like it was completely unexpected. He was like, I don't want you to sit here trying to figure out where if you're going to take it or not. I'll pay for it. And when he offered to pay at that time, the fee had went up to $1,500, and so the second time around, when I found out I didn't pass, they only gave me like a week or so to get the funds. It was like, if you want to retake and sit for the next bar exam, we need $1,000 by this day. And when I tell you, the job I was working, like I said, was my first clerkship. So I was still on this different pay scale. I wasn't making a lot of money. It was a prestigious clerkship, but I wasn't getting paid a lot. Right. And I have six-figure credit. Six-figure student loan debt. So I was in a very tough spot that year. It was financially, it was terrible. I would cry and I just like, I can't believe I'm in this position after how hard I've worked. This is kind of where I am. So when I had to take that test over, I didn't have any money in my account. When I tell you I had maybe like 50 cents, wow. 50 cents. It didn't even land on a day when I would get paid for me to even try to consider paying it. And even if it did, it would take everything. But it landed on the day that it was due and I wouldn't even have the money to pay. And I remember talking to my cousin that lives out of here in Maryland, and we were talking about this situation. He said, I'm going to pray that God would just send people to bless you with some money, bless you with money to pay for your test. I said, well, I received that. I'm going to pray, go ahead, pray that prayer. I'm gonna believe that God gonna work it out. And I remember praying and telling God, God, I don't believe that this is the end of the road for me. I definitely believe you have me here for a reason, for a purpose. So God, you have to make it work, because you see my account, you see the payday, you see that it don't fall around. So you gotta I know you're gonna have to come through, and I know it's gonna be you. And when I tell you, people randomly started sending me money. Randomly sending me money. I remember friend of mine cashed out me some money, and she said, this is for being a great friend, go get your nails done. She had never done that before, and it never happened. I'm just like, what? And so I texted her and said, thank you so much. I'm actually going to use it for the bar exam. And the next day she sent more money and use this for the bar exam, still use that to get your nails done. And then when I was talking to my mentors and different people, just telling them like, I didn't pass, the first time around, I'm just trying to take some time to regroup. People were just like, one of my mentors was in Nigeria, and she was like, I'm going to send you an e-check because I want you to take this test. Another friend was like, I don't have much, but I'm going to send you $15. And so many people just started sending my church, my pastor, and just friends and people just started sending me money. I didn't even have to ask. I had enough by the time it was for me to pay for my test. Pay for the test. I had enough money to pay for the bar exam and my car note, because my car note was behind because I didn't have the money for it. God allowed me to get so much I could pay the test and my car note. There's nobody but God that works that out. When you look at your account and know you don't got nothing in there, right? So I was able to take the test for the second time around, and of course it was a little bit more pressure too. I'm like, man, all these people wanted to help me pay this. I really do hope, that I passed. And, I will say that God allowed me to be able to retain that information. There was times on the test that I didn't really remember my answer for one question. I didn't really remember. And I remember saying, Holy Spirit, please bring back to my remembrance what I studied. I said, I don't remember studying this for this question, but please help me to answer this question. I stopped in the test and said that prayer. And then I wrote whatever came to my mind. And after we left from that particular section, because it was time for like a lunch break before you start the next section. But during your lunch break, you could go back to your car or whatever to review materials and stuff. So I went back to my car and I was like, I got to see what the answer was. And don't you know, it was the exact answer, word for word. Recollection of that, and so I ended up passing this time, like being able to I took the UBE, and the UBE is the uniform bar exam instead of a state specific exam. So in certain states, you have to take that particular state's exam in order to be licensed there. But if your state now is a uniform like a jurisdiction that has a UBE, then if you take the UBE and you get a certain score, you can transfer that score to that state and be able to, now obtain a license there, do whatever they require, but it's easier. It's a little bit of an easier process.
You don't have to take another test again if you go to another state. Well, that's good. That's good, because I know that would be like, Lord, listen, we can only do this one more time. But but that's good that you were able to go through that journey, because it is, like I said, every step through all of this, like how present God is and how much he showed up throughout it all. Like, it just reminds you that when you are put into a place and you have faith and you believe that and you call on God and call on the Holy Spirit, that these things are actually going to happen in your life. Like, you just have to keep believing that. Like, that's the thing about it. You don't get put, like, that wasn't poured into your spirit at such a young age, only for everything else to be hard and obstacle and to be taken away. It's just that this had to happen in a way where the steps and everything you took to get there happened for yourself. So that is such an awesome testimony, and that you're still, being in a place where you can share that, and this will be an inspiration to others. So thank you for being so honest and open about that, and open about your faith as well. But now you have gone and you're past this bar exam. Did you stay after that year to stay with the judge as well? Or did you was like, all right, I got this bar, I'm going somewhere else now?
No, so I stayed my second year, and I knew I wanted to clerk again, but for a different, like, I wanted to see the trial level, because I had did appellate for 2 years, but I was like, I want to see what happens on the trial level, because there are things that you don't see on the appellate level, like different motions that don't make it to the appellate level. And so I began looking for a federal clerkship where I would be able to work for a federal judge on the trial level, and that's what I did. And so I was able to get a federal clerkship here in DC and work for a federal judge for a year, and that was amazing as well. Gave me the experience that I wanted. But after that, I was like, okay, now I'm ready for a permanent position, because of course with every clerkship or whatever, I had to either move, so I lived in Columbia for 2 years and I had to move again, and then the salary isn't permanent, so then you get used to one and you got to adjust, and now you got another one. So I was like, okay, at this point I got the experience that I wanted. Now I'm ready for a permanent position. And that's when I began to try to figure out where was I going to apply to next, and the job that I wanted, is it available, in these type of things now. So yeah, so from there, that's when the focus became, now time for this permanent position.
That's so great, because it's just like you were like, all right, I've done this work, so now it takes me getting to the next step, because I'm assuming that matters on your resume, that you have had this experience. Like, they don't want you, even they're saying that you wouldn't have gotten a job, but you've had this law clerk experience before going and now saying you want to get a full-time position. So was this full-time position where you currently are now, or did you get something prior to this?
No, so this is the job I have now is full-time, but I didn't have anything prior to that. So when my clerkship ended in August, it ended August 31st of 2020. I was without a job for 6 months until this job started March 1st of 2021.
Wow.
And so I want to say, take it back to maybe June of 2020, when I was towards the end of my clerkship, I was still trying to figure out, I had been trying to figure out from the time I got there what I was going to do next. But I want to say in June is when I really started to be like, okay, God, what am I going to do? What's happening next? The pandemic now is here. Life has shut down. Things have completely changed than how it was just 6 months prior to that. And so, I was trying to figure out, Lord, should I stay in DC? Should I go back to South Carolina? Like, where should I be? And I definitely I heard the Lord tell me to stay in the DMV area. And so I said, okay. So I renewed my lease in faith. I renewed it in faith because, I didn't know what job I was going to have coming up, but I just knew I was still supposed to stay here. And then, I was still trying to figure out where I was going to work at, because at that time I didn't see any postings, at the U.S. Attorney's Office or anything like that. And, of course, people around me are like, here, try to work here, try to work there, or here, go here, interview there. And people were setting different things up, but it wasn't what I wanted. And part of me just felt like God's not going to allow me to have to settle. Like, I'm just not going to have to settle. I went through all of this stuff. And, I didn't even tell her all of the stuff. Like, I went through a lot of stuff, and I'm going to have to settle for a job I really don't want. I just don't believe God will allow me to have to do that. I believe he'll let me work in something I'm passionate about, that I really want to do, which all goes back to being a voice for the voiceless and doing something, that in honor of my uncle, like, I really want to do something like that. And So I continued to just hold out, but it was very negative because so many people kept telling me, you know, you want to work at like U.S. Attorney's Office and DOJ and stuff like that. Like, you don't have enough experience, and you know, you don't have enough trial experience. You know, oh, you don't have litigation experience. Or, oh, you don't have this, you don't have that. And it was very negative. So I remember being like, wow, like, here it is again, all these different things being said, you know, about what I can and can't do. And you know, I remember praying and just saying, God, you know, what am I going to do? Because I want to hear now. I need to hear from you, because everybody's saying this, but what are you saying? And what he told me, the only thing he told me was to not doubt and to trust him. And so I did. And so, you know, I repented of doubt and I began to continue to trust God. And once again, I was walking in the unknown because I didn't have anything lined up. And then my job ended, as you know, it was only for a year, and my judge retired. So it was no way I could still hold on. So it was just done. And when it was done during those 6 months, you know, I really had to just trust God during that process, that he was going to hold true to his word. I would be able to do something I'm passionate about. And despite what people had to say, God had the final say. And if he told me to be up here and he told me all these other things, and I look back on my life and I see everything he's done for me, he's good for his word now. So I'm going to trust what God says. And even though people got their own opinions of what they want to say, what I can do and can't do based on my credentials, I know what he's done with my credentials. That I've had or lack thereof, or whatever the case may be. So therefore, let me continue to trust him in this process. And it was hard. I'm not gonna make it seem like I didn't have my days. I didn't doubt. I didn't cry. I didn't, because I definitely went through all of the emotions. I went through all of it. But I thank God for having a mother that would just know to just pray for me. My mom just one time just came up and prayed for me because she saw that I was like getting, you know, sad and depressed and stuff. And she didn't even know, well, really, I don't even know how she knew, because I was not showing her anything. But what she didn't know was, you know, late at night, I would be crying, or in the middle of the day, I'll be crying. But here she comes, just with some encouraging words, you know, that helped push me along the way. And I applied for this job, I'm going to say in August, like right before my job ended, like 4 days before my job ended, I applied for this job. And then I heard back from this job in October. And so about an interview, and just to show how even that goes, like when I applied, it, like I said, it was August. September, I go home to just hang with family, and I'm supposed to go back to, you know, South Carolina. Supposed to go, yes, I was in South Carolina, supposed to go back to DC. And you know, during that time period, I went to visit a church, and you know, the pastor, you know, she was someone I had reached out to when I was going through a lot of different emotions. And one of the things when she prayed for me was, she said, you know, for me to have safe travels back to DC, but she also said, you know, expect a phone call. Like, you're going to get a phone call about an interview within the next 24 hours. And I said, I receive it, you know. And so my family was like, why are you leaving right now? Like, why don't you just wait to go back to DC until you hear? And I said, no, I'm going back in faith, believing that I'm going to have an interview, and I need to be up there. I need to be up there ready for my interview when it's time. And I left, you know, that Monday morning, and I'm telling you, within 24 hours, I didn't even make it all the way back to DC yet. I was still 20 minutes out, and I got the phone call about an interview. And I interviewed, you know, that whole month of October, and then they extended me an offer in December, but I didn't start officially until March. And so it's nothing but, you know, really just God's faithfulness, because he told me I wouldn't have to settle for something that I wasn't passionate about. And then yet, you know, despite what people had to say, I still was able to get a job that I was passionate about. I do work that, you know, I'm passionate about. And, you know, it's exactly the lane that I'm supposed to be in, the job that I wanted. You know, I had interned here and had a great experience and really wanted to be there, and was able to get exactly what I wanted. And I think nobody but God for that.
Yeah. And I think it's just so good, because a lot of times people often think that, well, let me just take this little crumb that I'm being offered, because you think that's all you're worth in that moment. But when you know your value, you know the work you put into it, and you're like, no, I want to get the exact thing I want, and everything I've worked for leading up to this part of my life should allow me and afford me to that. And it's also about holding out, like not just jumping out there, just the first thing that's given, just because it's a door that opened, because not every door that opens essentially shouldn't be the door you walk through. And that's what you have to really have a spirit of discernment to know that for yourself. But when you, I guess, think about in terms of your job and all the challenges you've been through, what would you would say has been a challenge, and what has been the thing that kind of gets you up and out of bed every day?
Say it again.
I said, what has been a challenge for you throughout your career now that you're assistant U.S. attorney? And it's also, what's the thing that gets you out of bed every day?
So I would say what has been a challenge throughout everything that I've been through, kind of throughout my journey. I would have to say probably believing and moving past believing in myself. And I don't want to say that's a challenge. I want to say that's what helps me, because really, like, in those dark moments, it's easy for everything that everybody who had something to say negative can come back in, from the stuff from your childhood, from the stuff that you experienced. But having enough to understand, realizing that you are here for a purpose, realizing you made it this far for a purpose, and realizing, like, you know what, God has helped me this whole way through. All of this don't matter. All of this don't matter. And at the end of the day, if I say, God, if this is where you want me to be, then this is where I'm going to be. Like, I want to be where you want me to be. And if that's where God has me to be in that moment, even no matter how difficult it is, I go back and I remember, like, his word says all things will work together for my good. So a lot of times when I was in those bad moments, I will always tell myself, everything's going to work together for my good. Like, it has to work out. Like, and in those moments and times when I just didn't know, I'm walking in the unknown, don't know what, I would tell myself, to encourage myself, there's still time for God to be God. That was something I was telling myself, like, there's still time for God to be God. There's still time for God to be God. Like, there's still time to encourage myself to know, like, it's never too late. He can work it out. It might not be my timing, but his timing will be perfect timing. So I would say that's what keeps me going. I guess so I kind of guess that kind of ties in together when I'm feeling those dark moments of challenging of, can I do it? Is it going to happen? What do I do? I'm walking the unknown, because the unknown is scary. The unknown is scary. All right. And so that, I would say, is the challenge, because I feel like I've been walking in the unknown for a little minute. Like, I know God got me, but I personally might not know exactly what's next. But I had to trust God in that. And so I would say that's kind of the challenges. And also in the midst of those challenges, that's what encouraged me and what I had to do to encourage myself along that journey.
Then that was one of the things I was going to ask you, like, what is a mantra or kind of like a thing affirmation that you say to yourself that does encourage you? Is it one thing, or is it, scripture? What is it that you say to yourself that kind of reminds you and encourages you?
It was kind of a combination of, what I just said, with different scriptures and remembering kind of where God brought me from, and then different songs, different songs, like, this is how I fight my battles, how there's a song where it says, like, every time that I think that I'm surrounded, when I look around, really surrounded by you, talking about God. And in those moments, I like to remind myself of that. Like, it might feel like I'm surrounded by all this negativity and all these different things, but the truth is God is right here with me, and I'm okay. Like, if this is where I'm supposed to be, then everything is okay. I'm not too late. I'm not behind. I'm right where I'm supposed to be. And sometimes we lose sight of that, because we see everybody else in life who, have been in their careers. Because look, I'm just starting mine, like, permanent career. People have been in their careers. I graduated in 2017. They've been there now for 4 years. So I could easily have looked at that and been like, I'm behind. I'm still not married. I got this, I got that. Like, you could just kind of go on this downward spiral, but remembering that, listen, you have purpose, and where God has you right now is where you're supposed to be. And I think, that right there really helps me a lot. And definitely just reminding myself, like, you have purpose. That's the biggest thing I would have to say, that I have purpose. I have purpose. Like, I have purpose. Like, I have purpose. Even if I can't see it right now, even if I don't even really believe it right now, I definitely have purpose, and everything's going to work out. Everything's going to work out.
And that is such a battle that I think everyone torments itself with, the compare and contrast thing. I always say, you comparing yourself and then the contrast of what your life is, and this person is this place, and why haven't I? And it's they always say that the spirit of the devil, like the devil trying to rob you of your joy, because you never sit in a moment of joy, of just realizing, like you said, where you are is where you're supposed to be. Just because you see others having obtained certain things, you don't know what they went through to get to that point in life. So we're always comparing, and there's always a contrast between what is and what could be, as opposed to just sitting in a moment of just like, my purpose is where I am right now, and not saying I don't aspire for more, but just appreciating that moment. So that's, I feel like, if nothing else, God brought you on to speak to my spirit. I know Kiana's behind the scene. She's probably back there crying, because, she's really the crybaby of the group. But no, it's just because I know that he is using you. And, when you're in a position that you are in and knowing that you're doing it to help others, being a service to God and knowing that, but you are being the light to everyone, because oftentimes people think being an attorney means you got to be dark and, not a religious and not thinking about faith. So that is so good to know that you can still sit in your faith and still be in a position like this. So that's so great to hear. So when you think about your life and what you would want to say to others and what you will want to leave to anyone in any journey they're going into in terms of their career, just stepping out the door to get out of bed in the morning, what advice do you give to people about never giving up?
So I would say to have your dream, protect your dream. Okay. Have your dream and you protect your dream. Believe in your dream, believe in yourself, and then trust the process and trust God. I would also say, to also remember, once again, you don't have to fit the status quo. You don't. Your life don't have to fit it. What you look like, what you do, none of that has to fit the status quo, what people perceive that you have to do a certain thing, you have to be a certain way. You don't have to. Okay, God will and he can allow you to break the mold. He's done it for me. He'll do it for you. I absolutely believe that. I absolutely believe it. You don't have to have every box checked off for God to still make a way. Okay, you don't have to. All right, so I definitely want to encourage people to pursue your dreams despite what people say. Okay, pursue your dreams no matter how hard it feels, how hard it gets. There's going to be highs, there's going to be lows, but guess what? That what you go through will be your testimony. You will be able to encourage other people. You will be able to bless other people, and you will one day turn around and be able to give a helping hand to somebody else and be able to pull somebody else through and be that, support system, just like somebody was able to be that for you. So continue to believe in yourself. Get you a journal. Get you a journal and write down your dreams. Get you a journal and reflect on your dreams. And that's what I do. I have a journal. I have multiple journals that I use. And when I had those dark moments, I would look back at my journal and see how far I've come. I would look back at my journal and see, wow, how this door was open and that door was open. And so all I got to do is continue to keep trusting, continue to keep believing that if he did it then, he's going to do it now. If it worked out then, it's going to work out now. So it's not going to be easy because nothing that we really want is ever easy. If it's easy, something probably ain't right about it. But if you do the work and you trust the process and you trust yourself and believe in yourself, don't give up. Do not give up. You could give up now. And what if the promise that whatever it is that you wanted was literally right there on the other side? You were 2 seconds or you were just a month away from your breakthrough. Okay. I had my moments of, being sad and upset and thought about giving up. And I remember, the woman of God told me, the pastor, she texted me and she said, you're so close to your breakthrough. You're so close to your breakthrough. Keep praising God on your way out. And I did. And then guess what? Got an interview in October and it all began to just work together. You're so close. Whoever it is, you're so close to your breakthrough. Do not give up now. Trust God, trust the process. He got you and you got this.
That is so. See, I told you. I told you. Good job. I say one thing about it is like with me, and I'm knowing the crybaby, but like I said, typically because of the fact she's back there watching this, if you will watch somebody, pouring into your spirit, I know how much your words and your journey is going to not only inspire us, but inspire so many people. And I'm going to make sure we push this out for a replay over the thousands because people need to hear that because people often feel like they don't never see the journey that got the person there. They only see the end and they think, oh, look, she got it there. She's sister and she's this and that. And she didn't have no trials and tribulations, but they don't see that part. And they think that that's just all people end up being and don't realize there were struggles that led up to the success. And you still have some here and there, but you know what your armor is. And the fact that you knew how to suit up your armor was probably why you were able to, be, in battle with that and still be able to get up and push forward. So we thank you so much. I mean, I know my spirit is filled. And I know, like I said, God used you in so many ways today and will continue to touch the lives of so many. So we thank you so much, Shaniqua.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm such an honor to be here. Thank you.
Thank you. And for all those out there watching and we'll watch this replay again, we thank you for watching and coming on and seeing Shaniqua and taking part in her journey and finding about her being an assistant U.S. attorney. We thank you all for coming on the show and watching us. As you can see down, my job is like this time is over with. just on cue. Just so cute. Anyway, y'all, thank you all. But make sure if you want to support the show, make sure you do so by Cash Apping Kiana Tennant. Can I talk? Because you're going to leave now. Ma'am. Where's your daddy at? Make sure you support the show at $ Kiana Tennant on Cash App. Carter.
Look, she has a voice. Let her use it.
Well, this is why I always say, this is Shada's meant to be a performer, and I can already see it. This is why as soon as the camera's on, she'd be like, and lights, camera, action. Anyway, so yes, we thank you all for coming on, and whoever watches this replay back will be inspired by Shaniqua's journey. I'm just like you said, she's a friend, but I already know, I'm just so inspired by her journey. I can only imagine the book, the things that she's going to be writing and things she's going to be on. It's going to be such an inspiration. And hopefully if you know someone who's been an inspiration to you, you want them to come on the show, make sure you email us at inspiredbyanalyst@gmail. Kind of put it right below. As well. Make sure you follow us on all social media platforms and Instagram and Facebook. And make sure Kiana said she's going to set us on LinkedIn. So then make sure you now know if you have other professions that people want to come on and talk about, or if you find someone who's been an inspiration to you throughout your journey, make sure you contact us so they can come on the show. And also, we have shirts. Kiana, we got to get an image up so people can see these shirts. Shirts that you can support the show. So, all along with your donations, we have shirts if you want to purchase those. If you follow us on our social media, you'll see the shirts too. But we thank you all so much for coming on and being a part of this platform. It has, every time I speak to somebody, feeds my spirit. So we thank you all so much. Thank you. And Carter, who decided he wanted to make a guest appearance.
Thank you, everyone. And remember, tune in every Thursday at 7 p.m. To hear our next guest.
Yes.
Have a great evening.
Yes. Until then, remember, we inspire together.